Hello and welcome to PoE Bad Builds. FalsePrelate here. Today I'd like to take a look at path of building and show you how to make your own build from scratch. So right now it's kind of getting closer to the end of the league. Um, People might be trying to start to think about, okay, what builds are kind of underused, what items would I like to try out. So this is a great time in the league now that you've probably established some currency in the league to spend on kind of hipster builds or doing your own thing. At this point in the league, you probably don't want to be doing the meta builds. And also, there's a Flashback league coming up, so maybe you'd like to try something new for that as well. So, rather than following a guide, how can you create your own build? So, I think the first thing you want to do is you want to think, okay, what class do I want to play? What items do I want to work with? What kind of theme or idea do I want to use in my new build? So, for me, just for sake of the video, I decided I'm going to use this item here, Dyed Bellow, which is not heavily used. Um, it's got some pretty good physical damage, got some good melee damage, and it's got this crazy 20% attack and cast speed if you've Warcryed recently. The big downside here is that you can't leech on low life. So the kind of builds that would be good for this are like melee attack totem builds, right? Because you don't have to worry about leeching because you're not leeching anyway. Okay, so I'm going to use this item and make a build around it. So once I go to path of building, and I'll leave a link in the description, you can download this this program and then follow the steps here, and we can get started. So if we click New, we go in here and we see a skill tree. We see the ascendancies around the skill tree for each class. And we see a bunch of different tabs here that we can click to get to different parts of the program. So just going through what all these things are, we have along the top the name of the build, which is right now is nothing. So we'll just call it 3.6 test. And then we have our passive points, our ascendancy points, our character level, and our class and ascendancy. So we can choose what class we want to be. I think for this build, let's be duelist. And let's go champion for our ascendancy. If you're not really sure what ascendancy to go, you can look down to where the ascendancies are down here, and you can look at the different passives and decide, are these things that would be good in my build? Okay, so we've chosen a class and we've chosen an ascendancy. What do we do next? Well, next thing we have our bandit choice. So generally for bandits, the rule is if it's crit, you go Alira, and if it's anything other than crit, then you just take the 2 passive points. There's a few rare occasions where you'll want the health regeneration, but it's pretty rare occasion. So I'm just going to stay with the 2 passive points for now because I just don't really know where this build's going to go, and it's good to have the flexibility. Alright, then we're going to go with the main skill. So we go here to our skills, and we click New, and then we choose a skill. So I said we're going with our Dyed Bellow, and we're going to use the totems. So let's do, let's take a look at our totems. So we have Ancestral Protector and Ancestral War Chief as our options here. So Ancestral Protector has better single target damage, but Ancestral War Chief has much better clear. So it's kind of up to you. I'm just going to go with War Chief, and we'll just start from there. Alright, so next thing, down here it says sort gems by DPS. So this is when your main skill is selected up here, this will calculate your DPS of your main skill. And so you can start adding in the support. But right now, we're not wielding any weapons. It's going to be really difficult to tell if the DPS that's adding on is actually true. So I think the next thing that you would do on a build like this is to add in a weapon, just so you can get a general idea of the damage. So go to items, and then you see here there's weapon 1, 2, all these are all. This page here is what your character will be supposedly wearing. Now, when I'm making a Path of Exile build on Path of Building, I always assume that I'm getting worse gear than what I'll actually probably be getting, because it's easier to get better gear and assume lower than it is to assume too high and then not be able to reach that and then have a failed build. So let's get just a general weapon. So let's see here. I think I'll go axes. All right, so axe. Let's go. Let's do dual wield axe. Okay, so I'm just gonna do some rares. I'm not gonna do anything crazy. What's this? 365 DPS. That's really high. So let's just say, for sake of argument, it starts the league. Maybe we can get a 300 DPS axe at the start of the league. Pretty easy. So if you're unsure, go into PoE.trade and take a look at the damage levels of some of the items that are already on the market. And if it's before a league, just go into standard. And if it's in the middle of a league, like right now, you can just go on and take a look, and you'll see like once you start getting up above these numbers, it starts to get much more expensive. So let's assume for the moment that we're making a really budget build. Okay, so we've got 300 DPS axe. We can change all the stats on it here. This will probably be a resolute technique build, so I'm probably going to get rid of the crit chance. It's not really necessary. And again, let's just assume that it's not that great of a weapon. Okay, so add to build. But because we're dual wielding, let's just make 2 of them. All right, so now we have Ancestral Warchief, and we're dual wielding axes. So we've made that decision. We know we're going to be over here to the Resolute Technique side of the tree. We know we're going to be going axes, which is also over here. We're down here for champion anyway, so this is kind of starting to make sense. So basically, when you're planning a build, you want to be thinking about what area of the tree you're going to be in. So for me, because I was going Diebell, and I'm going to do a duelist with it, this area of the tree makes a lot of sense. Let's say I was going to do some sort of caster. Well, if it was an elemental caster, maybe I'd be up here in this side of the tree. If it's a physical caster, probably over here in this side of the tree. If I'm doing like a ranger build, I'm probably going to be over here on this side of the tree. So think about that when you're making your ascendancy and class choices. Okay. So now we can go back to skills. We've got our weapons. So it's a pretty good chance that what we put in here is going to be at least fairly accurate. So chance to bleed, yep, that makes sense. Brutality, that makes sense. Melee fizz, that makes sense. Ruthless, yeah, sure, why not? And for the last one, let's do the extra totem one. What's that called? Multiple totems. That'll actually bring down the damage, but it'll give us more totems. Okay. So now when we're putting the passives into the tree to plan the build, we'll get a pretty good idea of how much actual damage increase it is. So we come down here to the starter point, and we start looking at choosing our skill points. So generally, you're going to want to prioritize life if you're on this side of the tree. So we'll come down here through this area here. We're going to pick up some damage. And then at this point, you know, I have to decide, okay, am I going two-hander, shields, dual wield, or projectiles? In this case, we're going dual wield. We're not taking the accuracy nodes. You pretty much always want to come down and pick up all the life you can. That's good too. Okay, now we come down here, and if you're going dual wield, you pretty much always take this node. It's just really good. If I was going a non-totem build, like just like Shattering Steel or something like that, then I'd come up here and take the leech, or I might come over here and take leech. All right, then I gotta start thinking. Okay, this is like pretty basic, but where do I go from here? So start thinking about the tags that are on your skill gem. So if I'm thinking Ancestral Warchief, right? I can go down here to the search bar, and I can type in totem, and I can see where all the totem nodes are on the tree. So if I look, okay, there's some totem nodes here, so that would be a good place to go. I need these extra, the +1 totem node up here, so I'll be coming up that way. And these are some strong totem nodes too. So let's just, for sake of argument, say, okay, I'm going to come through here at some point. I'll take these nodes, and I'm going to be coming up here, definitely, to get the extra totem. So now I have kind of like a basic idea of the structure of where I'll be headed. And we'll probably take these as well because these are good nodes. Okay, so the rest of our build is going to be built around kind of this side of the tree. And we decided we're going to go axes. So let's take a look at the good axe nodes. Where are they? Well, there's some axe nodes here, so we could have come through here instead of coming down here. But we'll leave that for now. These nodes are really good, really strong, so we'll take all of those. And then we have some axe nodes here. Now, notice that these axe nodes here also kind of lead down to an area with a lot of life and one-handed attack damage, so let's take that as well. Take those. Sure. Alright. Now, you gotta start thinking, okay, how many points do I have? Well, if we come up here, it says required level of 56. So I could have this build right now as a level 56 character. So you start noticing, okay, you gotta start thinking of how many points do we have left and what do we want to achieve? So with a life build, generally you want to have at least 180% life on your tree. If you're going in hardcore, I'd say probably about 200% life. Because I'm on this side of the tree, I'm already down here. I think for this build, I'll take Blood Magic and Mortal Conviction. That'll bump my life numbers up a little bit, and I won't have to worry about mana. And since I'm over here, I'll also take Resolute Technique. Okay, so now the question is, how do I get more life? So I'm at 101 right now. So let's fill out some of these life nodes that we're already next to. Already next to life here, already next to life here. And there's actually life nodes right here that are actually really good because they have Chaos Arrest as well. Alright, we're already up to 172 life. That's pretty good. And look, we're 2 points away from the Templar starting area. The Templar starting area has got lots of life in it as well, so let's take these as well. Alright, so now we're up to 192. That's pretty good. And look, we even missed these over here. We're up to 212. So much life. So that's probably overkill. But if this is a hardcore character, maybe not. Alright, so if we look at our tags, we have Totem, which we've already looked at. We have Axe, because that's what we're using. Ancestral War Chief also has an Area of Effect tag, so let's take a look at that. So if we look, where are Area of Effect? Okay, so that's actually just for auras. So nothing down here really until you come up here. We're not taking Mesa, so we can't take that. Then we notice we have good Area of Effect nodes here, so we'll take those. Everything else is kind of too far away. So axes, totems, Area of Effect, all those have been filled out. Now we're looking at level 88. So we're basically where we want to be. And this is pretty much where, if I were making a build first time, I'd stop. Because around level 89 to 90 is where the experience starts to slow down. And it's just not realistic to make a hipster build and assume that you're going to get like much past level 91 with it. Because it's probably going to be bad if you're making some sort of weird hipster build. Okay, so now what do we have left? We have, let's just say for sake of argument, we're just going to get to level 88 for this build. Alright, now we have our ascendancy points. So let's take a look at our ascendancy here. Well, what would be good? We're a totem build, and we're melee. So this is really good here, this fortify, because now we don't have to go into battle to get fortify. We can sit at the back and still have fortify. That's really strong. All of these things here, though you can't be stunned while you have fortify, this all works because of this fortitude node. So that makes this really, really strong. Okay, and then we have a couple other options. So we have First to Strike, Last to Fall, which gives Intimidate, which is 10% more damage, or yeah, I think that's what it is, 10% more damage taken, or attack damage taken. And then we have our Taunt nodes. We have the Banner nodes, but we can't really get much effect of the Banner because we're totems. And Mastered Metal, which is Impale. So Impale is actually really good because we're doing a brutality kind of full fizz axes totem build. So let's take that. And then we have one more point to spend. I think the taunt would be really good because that basically just means that when these totems are hitting enemies, they're going to be not attacking you, and also this enemies taunted by you deal 10% less damage with hits and ailments against other targets. Well, another target is you if your totem is dealing the damage. So this is actually a really, really strong node. This also gives your totems a better survivability. Okay, so we've got our ascendancies done. We got our passive tree more or less done. Now we're looking at items, skills and items. So let's go to skills first. We've already got these. We can add in new groups. There's different things that you might want to use with this. So we decided impale. So let's get the dread banner and just assume that we're using that, just so we can get our impale chances up. And some other skills that you might use, something like enduring cry. Maybe have an enduring cry set up. I'm not sure. Well, maybe we'll find this out as we go along. All right, let's go back over to items. So what are we using? We said at the start of the video that we were just going to make this build based around dyed bell. So let's is it DEID? Okay, dyed bell. Cool. So this is a pretty sweet item. Add to build. Now we can start figuring out what other items that we're going to use. Again, let's just assume, for sake of argument, that the gear that we get is just really, really bad. So basically, I would say the 1 to 2 C uniques, you can kind of factor those into your build, but I wouldn't factor in anything else that's higher because you don't know if you're going to get them, especially if it's a solo self-found character. All right, so for body armor, let's just put in a general rare. Or no. So if you look at this, actually, let me show you something else first. If you go to any of these drop downs, you can select what type of item you're looking for. So this works for both the rares and the unique items. One interesting thing here, you can sort by name or you can sort by DPS. So if you sort by DPS, you can see what items give you the biggest damage boost. So Alliance Royal, SF Flask, Grook Tools, you'll probably won't get that at the start of a league, and that'll kind of remove your ability to use War Cries anyway, so you're not going to use that. A lot of these you probably wouldn't actually be using in this build, but it's a good way to like take a look and see, okay, what kind of items might fit well with this build. Or if you have like an open slot where you say, oh, I could definitely like use an item here. Maybe you're capped on resists already and you want to put in something else. This is a good place to do it. So body armor, probably you're going to want to get a 6 link there. So let's just assume that that's rare. For the gloves, maybe you can get a unique in this slot. So let's take a look at gloves and see what uniques are good for me here. All right, so Locktail Caress. This is because of the big attack speed on it. Probably not actually that great. There's better rares that you can get. Russo's, there's kind of no life on this, and yeah, I'm just not a big fan of that item in general. Thunderfist, you won't actually get any damage off this because of the brutality, except for the attack speed. So most of these are actually not really that great for our particular build. Maybe Hemophilia. So let's create some items then. Okay, so we go to body armor. Let's just assume that we're going to use an armor chest. And you have to start thinking about too, if we go to our skills, this is what's going to be in our 6th link. So this is all red. So you're not going to use like an evasion item or a energy shield item in your body armor slot because it's going to be too hard to get those colors. So you're going to use either a hybrid green red or a hybrid blue red, preferably a hybrid green red or a red. So we're going to just assume that we're going to just use an armor chest. All right, let's just add this to the build. I wouldn't worry too much about balancing resists on this, but for sake of argument, we'll just put some in. I usually, if I'm trying to do this from scratch, I just assume 2 reses per piece of gear, and I never assume over 70 total res, because it's going to be unlikely that you'll find that at the beginning of the league. And even this armor is a little bit high. You usually won't see that. All right, so we got our armor. Now our gloves. Now what are we looking for in gloves? Well, it's an attack-based build. So we're definitely looking for added fizz. If we were looking at these items, again, you can see there's the 3 prefixes and the 3 suffixes. And you can even apply an enchantment. And if you're thinking about like, oh, well, maybe I can get, I don't know, life and reses, but I won't be able to find one with fizz, but I know I can craft it on there through the master bench, then you can go to add modifier here, and you can click the crafting bench, and you can add on that that one as well, or even ones that can't be found naturally on the armor that are only allowed on the bench. Okay, so let's assume fizz. Let's just not put it too high. And again, just like 2 reses. Or actually, on this one, you'd probably want attack speed. Attack speed 1 res. Alright, this build, because I'm champion, I am stun immune, so I don't have to worry about going like Combs Roots or something like that. So I'll go just rare boots. So you want movement speed and life on boots. And then let's get some more reses on here. That's actually a pretty expensive pair of boots, but whatever. Alright, amulet. Amulet, okay. So amulet and ring slots. Amulets, especially for attack builds, these are really important places to get accuracy. And same with helmet, actually. Should have mentioned that. For this particular build, because we're going Resolute Technique, and Resolute Technique makes it so you hit, but you can't crit, but you always hit, we don't need accuracy on this particular build. So if I go to Amulet, I can start looking at, like, what do I want in my Amulet? Probably going to need Dexterity, just to, like, wear certain pieces of gear and use certain gems. Okay, so again, on attack-based builds, you're looking for physical damage to attacks. Or if you're doing an elemental attack one, you're looking for the elemental damage to attacks. If you're doing spells, then you're looking for spell damage and cast speed. For us, we're looking for physical damage, life. We don't need mana because we're going blood magic, and resists. And maybe attack speed if we can find it. But for now, let's just assume we're going resists. Click add to build. Same with the rings. Okay, so the rings, you have like a lot of different options. If you think you're running low on resistances, then you'll probably go for 2 stone rings. Up here, you can change which 2 stone ring it is, the fire and the cold and the lightning, or the fire and the lightning. So if I take a look, I'm pretty capped on fire almost, so yeah, I'll just do fire and cold for now, and that'll cap me in fire. And then same thing, physical, life. Just leave that blank for now. Cold. Cold res. Add to build. And then we're getting close to capping our resistances, so maybe I'll actually go, no, I'll keep that like that actually. We need here cold and lightning. And then we need cold. And that should cap us off, I think. Notice that the life values that I've been using on all of these items are super, super low. And we're doing that purposely because we're assuming that we're not getting very good gear. We have an extra slot here, so let's just do attack speed. Alright, now we have belt. So we're already capped at res. So we can kind of have some flexibility here on what we use for this slot, I guess. So if I go to, where is it? Belt. We go by DPS. We can see what belt might be good for us to use. So this belt's really good. The reason why this is good is because we always have Fortify, so we get that onslaught 100% of the time. That also would free up a flask slot if you're using an onslaught flask. And we get a lot of hybrid attack and evasion, so this is actually a pretty big damage increase. If you look, it's 3,600 total DPS, and that's, you know, that's pretty good. So let's throw it on, why not? How much is this? Is this expensive? Perseverance, 78. I don't know. This might be expensive. Let's just throw it on there anyway. Who cares? We're gonna ignore my, you know, we could use Belt of the Deceiver, because that's like a cheap one. So this is like actually pretty similar life and damage numbers, really, when you look at it. We'll just put this on there for now. Alright, then you have your flasks. I wouldn't use my flasks to determine DPS. Just keep those off for now, because you always want to assume that you don't have everything. Because like in a boss fight, you might not have all availability of all your flasks at all times. So we have one socket here. The reason I put that socket in is because for this build, and for pretty much any totem build, you're going to want to have that spire. What is it called? Spire of Stone. Isn't it built? Yeah. So the totems can't be stunned one. Now, the nice thing about Path of Building is, let's say that I wanted to, you know, create this as like a really basic entry level armor set, and then I wanted to make like a better one for later on when I think I'm going to get geared. I can save this set and then go to manage and create a new set for later on. All right, so let's just figure out what we've done so far. So far, we've created our passive tree to level 88. We've put in our jewel here. We've created our skill and the links that we're going to have on the skill. We put in all of our items. Our resistances are capped. Our chaos rest is a little bit low. And now we have to figure out how to actually calculate the damage. So if we go to calculations, you can kind of see where all your damage is coming from. But if we go to configuration, you can see there's a lot of different options about how this damage is actually calculated. So let's go through these. Let's assume that the enemy level is at about your level. So right now, our level is set to level 1 because we haven't changed it. But our build is a level 88 build. So let's put this to level 88. All right. Now, when you put that in, you'll notice that your life numbers will go up. So this actually calculates our life as it would be at level 88. So right now, if I was at level 88 with the gear that I've suggested, I'd be at 5,300 life, which is actually really strong for the level of gear that that character has and the level. Are we always on full life? Probably not. We're not always on low life. Let's ignore that unless you're doing Ignite. Alright, now these here. I notice a lot of people when they're making builds kind of check these off. They just think, okay, yeah, I'm just going to check all these boxes. But you have to think to yourself, can I actually get these with my build? So power charges. Well, first of all, it wouldn't matter anyway for this build because it's Resolute Technique. Frenzy. A lot of people would check this off on an attack build. But if you think about it, we're not using Blood Rage, and we don't actually have any way of getting Frenzy charges. So unless I was to like, you know, make a Frenzy setup, and I'd have to like walk in melee range and start frenzying to get Frenzy charges, there's actually no way for me to get Frenzy charges with this build right now as it is. Endurance charges. I did put Enduring Cry on my build, and I did that because I needed it for the Dyed Bellow. So we're going to hit yes. Do I have Unholy Might? No, I don't. And because of the brutality, it wouldn't matter anyway. Do I have Fortify? Yes, I do. Do you have Tailwind? No. So Tailwind, that would be if you were Deadeye and you had the Deadeye passive. Do I have Adrenaline? In this case, no, I don't, because I don't have the champion node that has Adrenaline. Are you on Consecrated Ground? So the way that you would get this is using a Sulfur Flask. I'm going to say yes, just to see what it would be. So this is, I believe, 6%. So quite a bit of life regen. So you notice the life regen goes from 684 all the way up to like 1,000. So that's a pretty big difference. Right now, I'm going to keep that unclicked, even though I probably will use a sulfur flask later on. I don't want it on my page because then it makes it inflate these numbers like to an unnecessarily high number because I won't always have that. All right. Am I chilled, frozen, or shocked? Probably not. Have you used a war cry recently? Yes. Taunted an enemy recently. Now, again, this one, it does change the life regen. And the reason for that is because I have that champion passive. This one here. 2% of life regen per second if you've taunted an enemy recently. Except the key wording here is you've taunted. And I'm not going to taunt anything because I'm doing just totems. So if we go to configuration, that stays unclicked. All right, for effective DPS, injured crit chance lucky. No. Is the enemy moving? This is for bleeding. If we go to our tree, we do have chance to bleed from here. We do have chance to bleed from our chance to bleed. So we will have some bleed damage. Our bleed damage is actually fairly low, 5,000. If we click this here, Crimson Dance, this is makes it so the bleeding can stack up to 8 times, so it does less damage. I think for this kind of build, since it's kind of like hitting really fast and not like a lot of big hits, this is probably worth taking. So this halves it, but we can get up to 8 now. So this is going to do much, much more damage. So we'll just assume this is a level 89 build for now then. So is the enemy moving? Won't matter because of the Crimson Dance. Is the enemy bleeding? We'll assume that they are because if they're getting hit, they're probably bleeding. Poisons? Probably not. Is the enemy maimed? Well, we don't have maim in our setup right now. But I could switch out this Ruthless for maim. The DPS is not that different. But let's say I was to go to configuration and click off is the enemy maimed. You notice that the DPS goes up quite handily. And so maybe we'll keep the maim in there. And we'll keep the configuration saying it is maimed. Because this is showing quite a bit of damage. Is the enemy blinded? There's no way for us to blind in this build, so that is a no. All of these, same thing. There's no way to get any of these ailments. Is the enemy intimidated? In this build right now, no. If you have a friend that's in your party and they're intimidating stuff, then you can click that one off. Ash, that has to do with Chieftain or Ascendant Chieftain, and we don't have that. And the enemy will not be on consecrated ground very likely. Okay, now this one. Is the enemy a boss? So a lot of people will go and click Shaper Guardian on this one. And they'll rate their DPS in Shaper DPS. But I think it's, for most builds, you're not fighting Guardians and Shaper. Most of the time, the hardest things that you'll be fighting is just a regular boss. So let's set this to standard boss to give us a reasonable idea of the damage. Because if I go to Shaper Guardian, actually it doesn't change much for this build. But for some builds, it'll make a really big difference, especially ones with elemental damage. Okay, these we can all leave. Is the banner planted? For this build, no, because I'm not actually hitting Impale on any of these enemies myself, so there's no reason for me to ever plant the banner. Alright, then map stuff, we can ignore that. Alright, so now we look at our DPS, and we see 44,000 DPS. Is that high? It's okay. So what is considered reasonable DPS for a build that's level 88? I would say probably roughly 200,000 is like what you would need to be getting into like early red tier maps. You might be thinking, oh well, 44 is not really that much. No, it's not. But this is with 4 totems out right now, so that's like whatever that is, 170,000 DPS. So we're approaching there, and I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe this isn't taking into consideration Impale. I could be wrong though. I don't really see an Impale option on here. Anyway, that is how you create a build from scratch on Path of Building. I hope you had fun watching my video, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.